Today I'll be interviewing Tameka Citchen-Spruce, an indie film producer, screenwriter, and disability justice activist. Tameka, according to her website, is an African-American woman with a physical disability. She has been advocating and raising awareness for over 15 years for access to affordable and accessible housing, fighting against voting oppression towards people with disabilities, racial and gender injustices, and health equity. Prepare to be enlightened by today's episode as Tameka and I discuss her work, the systemic nature of ableism, intersectionality, and more. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kristen Super Quick Malef Check Show. I'm here with Tameka, and I'm really excited because it's not often that I get to interview somebody that I can call a friend and a colleague. And Tameka and I were both former Miss Wheelchair Michigans, actually. And a lot of people get confused when you say Miss Wheelchair Michigan because they're thinking of traditional beauty pageants. But what Miss Wheelchair Michigan really is more of a competition to be an advocate and a voice for the disability community. And that's basically what has brought Tameka and I together, and we run in a lot of the same circles as far as disability activism goes. But Tameka, why don't you go ahead and first tell my viewers at home what your disability is and how your journey into activism for the disability community started.
So I have a spinal cord injury, T2 level incomplete spinal cord injury as a result of a car accident when I was a baby. So really my disability advocacy started, I would say, for myself, started when I was 12, when I advocated for myself to be mainstream all day, from being in special education half the day. So my advocacy started for myself at that time, but I didn't get into the whole disability advocacy realm until after I was Miss Wheelchair Michigan in 2006, and that's when I was introduced to many different, wonderful women. And so shortly after, I started a nonprofit for women with disabilities. It's no longer in existence, but that really gave me, the tribe, and that's how I met you and other wonderful women during that time.
Yeah, that's where my advocacy really jumped off to, learning how to speak in front of other people, and even the thoughts and the ideas I had for wanting to make change were already there before I did Miss Wheelchair Michigan. It helped to give me a platform and to learn how to better articulate, my thoughts and all of that. So I can completely relate to that. And you also are a filmmaker now, correct? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my degree, bachelor's degree, is in journalism. And so that was like my gateway into film. I also have a theater background as well when I was in community college. So, with that and then with my advocacy, I was thinking, film is a very powerful tool, a very powerful media is. And so, I got behind the scenes in like being a production assistant, on student films and also a TV show. And then from there, I started to, write and produce my own material. So I produced a three films, but uh, and I wrote one short film and produced a documentary. So three in total that I've done since around 2011 to now.
Very nice, very nice. And what are your films about? The one that you wrote yourself specifically, what was that film about?
Yeah, so that was a short film called Justifiable Homicide, and it's about the dangers of racial profiling from a suburban young black man's perspective. And so, just and it's wild, I wrote that about almost close to 10 years ago, and the same things, are happening even now when it comes to police shootings and stuff. So I was inspired, by current events during the time. I was like with Trayvon Martin and others. And I wrote that, but then also the documentary I produced, My Girl Story, and that actually tells the story of two African-American girls from Detroit, and one of them have a disability. And so I made sure that, the disability representation is in my film. So that's really my goal, is to tell stories from underrepresented communities.
That's wonderful. And that touches on another subject that I know you're passionate about and I'm passionate about, which is intersectionality and how ableism intersects with other types of isms. I also found out sometime last year, that it was actually not just that people of color are killed more by police, but that people with disabilities also are killed. 50% of people that are killed by police have a disability. And the intersectionality of that, when you have multiple identities that are oppressed, and how that, figures into the whole equation, because people with disabilities are part of every community. So would you like to talk a little bit about what intersectionality means to you and how it's impacted your work as far as your activism and public speaking and your workshops and all of that goes?
Yeah, well, the intersectionality was coined by the term of Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, the great Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who I met. She's very nice, and so sweet lady. So basically, it was originally it came about because she was talking about how Black women, are experiencing different levels of oppression. And so, I was able to, to be able to fully understand that, being a Black woman. But then also, I like, it's interesting to see, for my work is important to me because of my own personal experience, being a Black woman with a physical disability and, the challenges that occurs, because I would say that I kind of been through all the different phases, when it comes to having a disability, when it comes to being, a brown-skinned woman with colorism. I mean, I just ran the whole gamut, of issues that comes with that. So, so that really, from my perspective and my life, it's like other people are experiencing similar things and have similar stories and even different stories. But I think it's important for us as, activists to organizations to look at people from a three-dimensional lens and not just seeing them as one person when they really are not.
Couldn't agree more. Um, and also, as far as your workshops go, I was reading a little bit about your workshops and what the process is. And I thought it was really interesting how you tackled the issue of how ableism is a systemic issue. And, you know, I think that a lot of people are still even learning what that means, what systemic means. And a lot of people aren't even familiar with the word ableism yet. You know, never heard of that before. They've heard of systemic in context of systemic racism, but not in context of ableism. So would you like to explain a little bit about how your workshop works and kind of how ableism is a systemic issue?
Yeah, so I've done a couple workshops, but the one recently I have done is about implicit bias from a racism point of view, but then implicit bias from an ableist, point of view as well. And so it was really interesting. And so really just on the basic level, because like you say, everybody don't have that, this a lot of learning to do. But basically, because we say systematic, that means people's relationship to the system. Say it's a different system. So, it could be relationship to economics like banks. It could be relationship to things like education when it comes to the criminal justice system. So we have to look at how does groups, basically, how, as a group, how is that group's relationship to the system, various systems, how does it affect people? It doesn't disproportionately affect others more than, affects more people than other people. So, so that's kind of, thinking in those terms. And so, like you said, racism, we understand that Black people's relationship to economics or to housing, where there's a disproportionate amount of Black people who are not homeowners. I'm saying for many factors. We know that there's a disproportionate rate of Black people who are in prison. There's many reasons why that is. So when we look at ableism, is discrimination against people with disabilities. And so, we have to, so when you look at policies and look at how systems affect people with disabilities, people with disabilities are oftentimes underbanked or don't have, or don't have a really great relationship with a bank or higher income because of discrimination, because of lack of access to transportation. And so there's different things that discriminate against people with disabilities, as it relates to the relationship with a particular system. So how do I kind of try to break it down at a very basic level? But
no, and it's hard to break it down because it is so enormous. It's a web of issues that all correlate, and but I think that's the whole point, is that it's not that ableism and racism and all of these isms aren't just individual acts of meanness or unkindness or whatever. It's a much larger, interconnected problem that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it comes to ableism, there's things like individuals do. So it could be like, make sure you create a space that is accessible, to people who are blind, people who are deaf, people who are, in wheelchairs and things like that. So it's those, small issues that needs to be addressed. Make sure there's working elevators and things like that, and curb cuts and just different things on the small level. But then this bigger level, like what I'm talking about with systems and institutions, and how they relate to different demographics and are disproportionate amount of people being left out of of that equation.
Mm-hmm. And I know that another issue that I've noticed with a lot of non-disabled people that haven't had a lot of interaction within, the disability communities, advocacy topics, the topics that they're focused on, still tend to think that most of the problems that people with disabilities face have to do with lack of access on a physical level. But what I've been really trying to raise some awareness about is that there's a lot of subconscious assumptions and attitudes, that also negatively affect the overall problem with systemic ableism. Because, if people think that all or the majority even people with disabilities are incapable of work and just need sympathy, or that being kind to them means just, I don't know, treating them with pity, for instance. That's a big problem, because we have a lot of potential that we're unable to live up to because of those types of attitudes. What is your thoughts on what you still see to this day as problems with social issues regarding the disability community?
Yeah, I think what you said, which goes back to the workshop that I did about, implicit bias. So implicit bias, is definitely, of course, with race, but then also it comes with disability and the stereotypes, say that comes with, having a disability. So many people do not expect, people, women with disabilities, for example, to have children, or who are capable of having children, physically capable, or even have the parenting, skills to, take care of, a child and things. So, so you have those different stereotypes that, you're constantly fighting against, and, and feel like you have to, prove yourself. So, to a degree, to show people that you're capable just like them, or you might have to do things a little differently, you know. But that doesn't, just because you might have to do something differently doesn't mean that you're not able to do it at all, or make it less than. But as far as with systematic issues that affect people with disabilities, it's a lot. The top ones that I've experienced or hear is housing, accessible and affordable housing is a big one, because houses, in apartment buildings are not always built for disabled people in mind, when it's created. And so, or being adapted to it. So that's an issue, especially if you have a physical disability, because you are limited with where you can live. What apartment buildings you can live in, and the type of houses you can get your house modified. But then you got to find somebody that can do it, and you got to find the money to do that. And when you low income, surviving on SSI, Social Security, that's pretty much impossible. So, so that's really an issue that affects a lot of people, and it have affected, myself. Um, and the other issues is, of always, employment is, another big issue. There's not enough disabled people, who are employed and gainfully and successfully, employed for many different reasons. Transportation, that's your thing too. Transportation is, a big issue because it's expensive, to drive and to, get a car. You gotta get hand controls or adaptive equipment to it, depending on your level of injury or depending on your disability. Say that's more expensive, and stuff. So again, if you are on SSI, it's like it's really hard to do. So and then with the buses and things like that. So there's many barriers that affect people with disabilities and why they can't live, full lives.
Absolutely, it all connects. And I wanted to ask you about an event that you did recently, about how that went, and a little bit about what it was about for the viewers at home. It was the Bell Global Justice Institute that did the presentation, Visible Voices in Intersectional and Intercultural Discussion on Women Decision Makers. And Tameka was able to speak there. And this is an official parallel event for the 65th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. So this is a huge deal. International audience that Tameka had. Tell us about this. This is so exciting. I was so excited for you when I saw this. How are you doing this?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was great. And so it was like myself and, other, I think it was like 5 other women, and we were, just speaking from our, perspectives. And, we talked about, I talked about my advocacy work and, and how, I do that, be, who I am, what would be my, is encouraging words, to other disabled people, or particularly, disabled women who want to do advocacy work in things. So it was a great opportunity, to share my work, and also to be, alongside other women from diverse backgrounds, and hearing their stories, their work, and their encouraging words. So it was a great event.
That sounds amazing, and I can imagine from being involved in Miss Wheelchair America, like you were, and getting to meet all of the women there and hear all of their stories. I learned so much in such a short amount of time by listening to other people's experiences and stories. I can imagine that you being there with all of these other amazing women and leaders and everything, that you learned quite a bit from this event yourself.
Yes, I did.
That's awesome. Well, Tameka, it's been an honor interviewing you, but I want to ask one more thing before we go. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you would really like people to know about you or your work, that you would like to share before we close?
Let me see. Anything I would like to share. Just to encourage, people. I know this is not easy, work to do, to be, a community of activists and things, but, I believe that we all are, put on this earth for a reason, and we experience different things, and so we, you know, we're not alone in our experiences.
No.
So it's just living out your your purpose, your God-given purpose, and just do the thing, do your thing, and to uplift people in the community, the disabled community, or whatever community you represent, to make a change in everything. So I just want to encourage people with that. And then also, you can follow me on, Facebook, and also have a website as well, Tameka Citchen-Spruce .com. So you can, follow me and what I do.
And I will share that on the details of the video as well on YouTube, so that people can find it easier. Well, thank you so much for spending this time. I always enjoy getting to talk to you. And I really hope that, my viewers at home have learned something by watching this, and that they learn more by continuing to follow you after watching this video. So thank you again. Thank you for your work. Keep at it. We need as many people like you as we can get. So, and for the folks at home too, like, anybody can be a voice for their community. And, you don't have to be a celebrity or, tackle every issue to make change. Like Tameka said, do what you can. So,
yes. And thank you, Kristen, for inviting me as well. I love your work. So when you reached out to me and said, "Oh yes, I gotta do it," that's my girl. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was my honor. So take care. I am going to end the video and press stop on the recording now. So take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.